have some stories.
Okay,
There's a
let's
huge
do it.
victory for polar bears as the court rejects Arctic offshore drilling project. They were saying
Good.
that after Trump administration gave approval for the project in 2018 to Hillcorp, Alaska, its Liberty Oil project in Foggy Island Bay was immediately slapped with lawsuits decrying the permits. The decision came on December 7th from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. I'm pleased the court today rejected the administration's inaccurate and misleading analysis of this project's impact on the climate, said Earth Justice Attorney Jeremy Lieb. So, we've saved the polar bears
Cool.
for another day.
Yeah, I mean, this the hardest thing is that I didn't talk about. Well, climate change is the hardest thing to talk about, because this is coming for them. I hate to say it, it's coming for them, and it's on us. So I am glad for any positive news about that because we're gonna
Yes.
have to do a strong plan to actually save our environment and our different species. We might have to go out of our way and create different habitats for species just to keep them.
Absolutely. They also made Stanford designers making bricks out of fast growing mushrooms and that are stronger than concrete. So this has like a lot of
What?
science in it. It's like has to do with mycelium, which is like I guess most
Uh huh.
of what the mushroom is made of. And they're drying it out and it's making these bricks that they're actually using. They've made a couple of models like archways and stuff, but they're also trying to get a 20 to 30 person home built made out of this mushroom brick. But it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty sustainable. They say it's fire retardant and it's water resistant. So it looks like we can actually live in a mushroom
Wow.
house.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I one interesting thing is that I watch Star Trek Discovery, and fungi is a big part of that. Like the way that they space travel is with a fungi related engine. That's the only. I'm not gonna ruin it for you because actually, if you get to the second season of it, it is actually really good. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that the power of learning the most about our agriculture, mushrooms, all those things is really the future. We're going to have to learn how to use the materials that we have because we are been taking out so many materials from the ground already, and that ruins habitats and causes erosion. So we're going to have to find ways like that, like creating bricks out of mushrooms.
They already make like coffins and stuff like that, which make like really easily degradable coffins, which is great because if you think of how we spend so much money on caskets and everything like that to be put in the ground that they don't even fall apart and they pretty much preserve the body, at least this would help them, you know, of the dirt, come back to the dirt. So
Yep.
they're using it in one way already. And then we have another story is people are loving their homes after spending so much time in them this year. People have been making renovations on their homes, trying to make it more habitable, especially since they've had to do homeschooling and working from home. Um, the study conducted by One Poll on behalf of Thermador aimed to discover how people are rethinking their home environment and the steps consumers have taken to create more purposeful living spaces. So, as a result of these upgrades, nearly two-thirds of those surveyed are the happiest they've been in their homes ever, which is great because you guys are spending a lot of time in there.
I'm gonna throw in a weird thing. It's not. It's I since I rent, applying those kind of improvements to my apartment is always a liability because it's never going to come back to me. But I just had I just had another group of people leave the apartment, not my apartment, but the building, and I'm realizing how much the housing crisis and like it's just this is an older building. And if you unless we get a lot of things fundamentally changed inside, the gentrification of the all the buildings that were built in the last 2 years, they're just in better condition. And I would put more into where I live if I felt like it would keep. You know what I'm saying? If they had done a better job or if they were willing to do more improvements, being my landlord, of course. So I feel like this is a true thing. Like I want to be home most of the time at this point. Um, even if I don't feel I love being around and outdoors, but right now the pandemic makes me I hate it. So I have to enjoy my home. You have to do your best to just feel at home.
They
Yeah.
say the top home updates of 2020 were updated kitchen appliances, 26%, rearranged furniture, 26%, redecorated, 25%, upgraded home decor, 25%, and upgraded furniture at 24%. So it's not just people that are like, homeowners that can make those big changes, like, changing their whole bathroom out, but yeah, it looks like there's probably a lot of stuff with it when it comes to renters and stuff too. You're rethinking your living situation and how everything is set up because now I'm spending a ton more time in here, and people had to invent desks pretty much that they didn't have desks in their house to make a work surface for them to work from home because they were selling out left and right at the beginning of the pandemic of at home stuff, work home offices were all selling out, so people were creating them out of ironing boards. They were putting ironing boards together. They were taking boxes and making like a surface out of boxes. So I think it made everybody kind of look at their house and like, shit, I need to clean this up.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Agreed.
So I like the fact that people adapted. That at the end of the day, that a lot of people adapted. Some people they lost their minds, but a lot of people at least adapted, and that kind of gives me hope. I just feel like it's only like 50% of the country that's like that. Which is kind of a scary thought. I wish more people would kind of like see what other people are doing and kind of I think in the past when there was less what's the word things to distract you with. I feel like at the end of the day, they were like, okay, I see what this person's doing. Maybe I should try that, or maybe get involved or learn from that. Now it's like, no, I'm gonna focus on my phone and do this and do that, and it's like nobody really knows how to adapt to things like this anymore. It's taken a like a the natural adaptation thing that people had in the past, and it kind of like squished it into something that people don't really relate to anymore. At least that's how I feel. Like I think because I'm kind of an older generation, that I can kind of see things for what it is and kind of like work around things. But I think and I can say some of the newer people do too, but some people are either too old and they don't want to change their ways, or they're young and they're stubborn. You know what I mean? Like they're just young and stubborn too. So
I'm young and stubborn. I'll admit it.
I mean, but you do things like I see how you, at least from my outside perspective, I see how you kind of like do things like you function, you want to get something done, you get it in your head and you actually work on it and do it. Some people they get stuck. Like I'm sure everybody gets stuck occasionally, but I feel like you work through a lot of your problems. You know what I mean? And you have patience with yourself enough for you to keep moving forward. I think a lot of people, that to compare like this, COVID thing, like and say that it's like jail or like slavery or like whatever else, it says a lot about a person's feelings in regards to how they adapt to situations. Like they can't handle things well, and it's a shame because there's I think that people should have a lot more help in general to cope. I think we need a lot more mental people that
We
help
need
people.
more mental health services.
Yeah,
It took
mental health
years to
service.
get to this.
Hmm.
Yeah, it
Yep.
took years to get to this kind of like patience about self at all.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
Yeah.
not. I wouldn't even call myself the best at it. I would just say that it takes so much, not just adaptation, but learning. It's a learning process to
Yeah.
continuously be like, nope, you're gonna fight through this day. You're gonna get through this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are lessons that you learn when you're young, or maybe it's not easy for you to learn that lesson,
Yeah.
and it takes a little bit of push from other people. If you're lucky, you have mentors. If you have some structure from your job or whatever you need, because I think that it's different for other people. I know that when I go to work, I enjoy the hustle of the job that I do. I'm a sound mixer, so it is hard for me to like hold a bag. It's hard. It's 30 pounds on my
Yep.
stomach, and like me holding stuff in the air. But when you get the product done, then you feel it. You're like, all right, I just did something with my day.
Right.
Um,
Well, I think
at the
that's the
same
biggest thing
time,
that you
I
said though is finding what works for you. You know, that's the important thing is people need to find what works for them, and people really need to realize that it's not cookie cutter, it's not one size fits all when it comes to mental health. People really need to reflect on what's working and what doesn't work for them. And just because it works for a lot of people doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for them. And you need to be able to check in with yourself and say, is this working? Am I okay? Is this okay for me? And I think a lot of people before all of this, were willing to suck up and deal with a lot of shit and just take it as that's the way it is. And now that we've come to face with a lot of stuff that we have never had to experience before, it's now we're taking that time to say, this is not okay. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with this situation. I'm going to change things now with the opportunity that's given to me.
Some people I think have had like a lot of distractions in their lives, and then when the shit hit the fan, excuse my language, they didn't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? Some people have had crap all their lives, and they've gotten used to the point that it's become normal, and they can deal with it. Like I always tell Teresa and other people, I have switches in my mind, on, off, yes, no. Like just like a computer works. You know what I mean? Like this, how I perceive life. If something looks like it's right or wrong or whatever, it's always sort of like yin and yang. There's always one side and then another side, and sometimes there are gray areas that you got to like look more deep into. But at the end of the day, it is a yes or no decision or whatever else, and that's what's kind of keeping me grounded. Like in a sense, like if I feel like something's not right, eventually I'll get to a point in my mind where those switches start toggling, and I'll see, okay, this isn't right. You know what I mean? Or I got to do something different here to make this solution sort of like calculating, it's like how calculators work. Everything, the human mind, I think, is a lot broader than that. But at the end of the day, the fundamental thinking behind it, I feel, is like that. Now, some people don't have the same mental capacity in regards to how to cope with it, like how to, and trust me, I have my moments. Everybody has their moments. We all have our moments. But I think a lot of people that have been in denial for many years, like you have a lot of people in this country that have had this sense of entitlement or a sense of this is how it's supposed to be because this is who I am, or because I'm white, or because I'm black, or because I'm this is the way things are supposed to be. I feel that's given them that delusion that when the shit actually hit the fan, that they couldn't cope with themselves, and that's why people feel suicidal. I think in a lot of situations, why people want to point fingers at other people, even though in reality, a lot of fault is in themselves. And instead of dealing with it that way, they just they just push it aside and blame other people. Some people blame themselves when it's really other people, and a lot of people can't get to that fundamental in my mind, and that's including me. I'm not perfect. I don't want to like point fingers at other people because I think everybody needs room to grow. Everybody needs to some degree therapy or assistance from others. It's crazy out there, and we've been thrusted into like this COVID stuff and everything else, and nobody would have expected it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When COVID was first announced, I was like, yeah, whatever, then we'll see what happens. And now we're at 300, about 300,000 deaths, and we're like, wow,
300,000 deaths. Yeah.
yo, that's crazy, right?
8 months of
So like, it's gotta. I know this is a cool down. Let me shut up about this. You know what I mean? This is supposed to be the
But
happy
I think
notes.
that's important though
but
that you were saying is breaking what you expect or what you're anticipating is what's supposed to be the norm. I think that's the biggest thing that people need to focus on is what this is not. You don't have to worry about the expectations of what it's supposed to be. Don't think like that because the harder it's going to be on you is if you keep holding on to that idea of what this is supposed to be. We're supposed to be. We're supposed to be.
Can't be
Just because we're
destructive
supposed
either.
to be all together
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving doesn't mean that we should be all together
Yep,
for
yep,
Thanksgiving.
yep,
There is a pandemic going on. Same thing for Christmas. Sorry, it's not how. Just because it's supposed to be like something doesn't mean it has to be like that. And people are coming to the point where they've gotten to their boundaries and they're saying, no, I'm sorry, Mima, I am not coming home for Thanksgiving.